Hey, I'm Jeff and welcome back to another video. There is plenty of information out there on how to propagate a pothos plant, but not a lot of times will you see what actually happens after you make the prune to the mother plant. Is it good for it? Is there any benefit to the plant, or does it harm it? So I'm going to show what to expect with this Mandula pothos, plus I do have a few other examples with some climbing philodendrons as well, just to show you kind of what to expect after you make the prune. Almost exactly 1 month ago, I made a propagation video showcasing the different methods on how to propagate a plant. I'll leave that somewhere up in the top corner if you want to go check it out. But this Mandula pothos had a section of the stem where it didn't have any leaves on it, so I decided to chop it off, and I actually took some individual node cuttings. Those didn't survive because I forgot to put them in water. Plus I also added a little propagation ball with moss in it. It's for the air layering method. So I'll show you kind of the updates with this plant and if it actually helped it or harmed it. Whenever you cut a plant like a pothos, as well as philodendrons, syngoniums, pretty much any aroid, you will never get new growth from the place where you made the cut. It will activate nodes or growth points along the portion of the stem, so at each node it will push out a new growth point. Now with this one, you'll quickly see there is a growth point at one of the closest nodes, and even if you go a little bit further back, you can see this little kind of light green area. That is another growth point activating further along in the stem, and you can see there's another one back there. So from this cut, it not only activated one node, but I'm getting 3 growth points from the original stem. Like, it doesn't even have any leaves on it, which is pretty surprising. So seeing how the plant responds after making a cut, most times you'll get at least one new growth point, if not multiple growth points. So after seeing how the plant responds, will it harm or kill your plant after you make the prune or if you cut it up? Absolutely not. It actually does quite the opposite. It'll help rejuvenate, so you're going to be getting 3 new growth points along the original stem. So you're going to be hopefully getting a nice full plant again. Basically, this plant had a cascading vine down right into my little garbage bag, and I just gave it a quick bowl cut. I cut around the perimeter of the plant, and it has since sparked new growth. So right here, this is where I've made a previous prune, and you can see it has sprouted out an entire new growth point from that node, and I'm just going to follow it along the stem, and you can see here is another node that has been activated. And let's see if we can follow it along up here, and it looks like up here as well. So there is another growth point. Before I start chopping up the pothos cutting here, I wanted to show a couple examples of some climbing plants. This one is a philodendron. This is my Syngonium chiapense. I've chopped off the top, so I want to show what to expect with these plants as well if you do decide to cut them up. Now the only difference between these plants is I've left this Mandula pothos to trail or to vine. I do have one that is growing on a moss pole as well. Now this is the Syngonium chiapense. I got a cute little leaf up here, but this is the mother plant. I chopped the top off a number of months ago. You can see this is where I've made the chop, and it's activated this node, which is now producing a new stem. I got one little new leaf right here, and then you can see there's another one coming in. But further down the stem, you can see there is another growth point. And then I don't think there's a little nub right there, but there's another little growth point popping through as well. And it looks like that might be the 3 areas where it's activated new growth points. So even if you have a climbing plant, this one I think I took the top portion of the moss pole and I repotted it. But I wanted to keep the mother plant just to show what happens after you make this cut. It's not destined for the garbage or anything like that. You'll get a nice, cool looking plant afterwards. I've never actually kept a single stem that has been chopped and is growing multiple growth points. So I'm curious to see how it grows on the moss pole. Eventually, these nodes, like there will be aerial roots that will be popping out through the nodes. It should root into the moss as well over time. So I'm curious to see how a kind of like a branch type structure on a moss pole will look. Now, same thing with a philodendron. This is the Florida green, I believe. I'm not entirely sure which variety this is, but same thing. I've made the cut right here, and it's activated this node, and it's pushed out a new growth point. And you can see right here, it's actually getting some aerial roots from that node. So I'm going to take this little sheath away like that. Now, focus, come on, these aerial roots will grow into the moss. Now the nice thing about this, if you do decide to, down the road, if it grows into the moss, then you can separate this cutting. You can make a cut right there and separate it from the main plant. Now the mother plant, it will not reactivate or it will not grow from this point again. So that's what's called a spent node. So if this growth point has been cut off, this node is essentially useless. So you can take a node cutting, but it'll never regrow or get another growth point. It will only do it once. So this is what's called a spent node. Now here's another example. This is the Monstera siltepecana. I chopped it right here because it wasn't really adhering or gripping onto the moss pole and the leaves were getting smaller. So I actually just cut it back and kind of restarted the growth. Did I do it on this one? No, this is the original stem. But right here, I cut it, and all the way down to right there is where the new growth point sprouted out from. And you can see it's pushed out a new stem. It's got multiple leaves, multiple nodes, and it's just continuing to grow up the moss pole, getting larger leaves. A little suspicious right there. Got some damage. I'm thinking this leaf might have thrips. A lot of times you'll see the damage before you actually see a nasty little thrip. This area looks suspicious of a thrip. If you see kind of streaking patterns, that means they're just going along the leaf, sucking out all the delicious juices within the leaf itself. So yeah, a little suspicious. Hoping I don't find any thrips. They've all been sprayed and treated in the past. So here is a cutting from that Florida green, and you can see this is what I mean by starting a new plant from a single node. So it has a leaf, a section of the stem, it has a node, and you can see it's got a new growth point, and it's actually got a bunch of little roots from the first node on it. So you can definitely keep it as a vine like this, but if you want to make multiple plants from a section of stem like this, you can take, I'm going to keep the rooted part at the bottom with a couple leaves, but I'm just going to cut in between two nodes. So here's a node, so each node will have a leaf, and then you can see some aerial roots. So you want to cut in between a node or two nodes like that. So for this section of the stem, again, you want to look for here's a node, got some aerial roots, some leaves, and then cut that right in half like that. This is a single node cutting. You can see right there. This Mandula pothos will get a new growth point from that node, and it'll grow into its own new vine over time, just like this one. So I just placed the stem cutting back in water. I'm going to place this one back in water here, just so it doesn't dry out like it did last time. You want to make sure that that node is submerged in the water. And I'm actually going to try soil propagation with this one. So I'm just going to stick, this is the top portion or the end of the stem, so it should continue to grow from basically where it left off. It's just going to continue to vine. So I'm just going to stuff this one right back in the soil. So this was actually watered yesterday, so I'm not going to give it any more water. I'm just going to use my pencil. I'm going to make a little bit of a hole. And again, you want this node to be submerged in the soil, and I'm just going to pack it down like that, and hopefully this one roots easy and doesn't get all limp and droopy and dies off on me, because I want a new stem or new vine from that cutting. I'm going to show this little moss ball here, this little air layering contraption. So the concept with air layering is you want to grow roots on the stem before you make the cut, so when you do cut it, it'll have a root system. You can quickly just place it in its own new container, and it should grow just fine. But the problem, or the thing that you have to do, is keep the moss consistently moist. Actually, it may have rooted in here. Actually, it has. So it has some decent roots. Like right there, you can see it's grown into the moss. I'm just kind of deciding what I want to do with this. I'm actually going to chop it off, I think, and place it in a new container. So right here, I'm just going to make the cut, something like that. Now I'll have a separate plant which I'm going to place in a container of soil. So I'm going to take this off just to actually have a look at the roots. So not a ton, but I'm happy with that progress for sure. So I'm going to place it in a little cup of soil. I left a couple nodes on this portion where I just made the cut, so like that, because I want these nodes to activate as well, and eventually they'll sprout out a new vine from there. So that's pretty cool. So I actually have a cup with soil, which I was going to use for another project, but I'm going to use it for this mandula. I do like to cut out little slits on the bottom of the cup. That way it allows for drainage, and then I simply just add another cup as kind of like a cache pot type thing. So now I'm going to just try and remove as much moss as I can, just something like that, so those roots are exposed. And I'm actually just going to dump this out a little bit, place the cutting in the container, and I'm actually going to lay it on its side like this, slightly, just so a lot of those nodes are submerged in the soil. And then I'm just going to add the soil back in the cup. Now I got to get some more soil. I'm just going to add it around on top of the plant. I'm just going to add some soil just along the side of it here. Just kind of bury those nodes. Now I'm going to take this over to the shower and give it a good thorough watering, and then I'll place it back in the cup like that. Another example of a single node cutting is from my water propagated monstera. This thing is absolutely massive. I did take a small cutting when I potted this in its new pot. So here is an old leaf. It's turning yellow, not a big deal. But here is a single node, if I can get all the roots out of here. And you can see there's a new growth point popping through this one as well with some healthy roots. So this will turn into, or this will be an entirely new plant just from the node cutting of one leaf. So I'm going to get this back in the water here, if I can get all these roots in without breaking it. But that is another example of a single node cutting. There, like that. And then I just have the leaf kind of poking through. But yeah, this is one of my favorite plants. These leaves are absolutely massive. And here is the newest one. It finally has double fenestrations, which is looking pretty sweet. So I hope this video helped you better understand not only what happens to the cuttings, but what happens to the mother plant after you take the cuttings. If you have any other comments or questions, please leave it down below in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Always appreciate the support. Take care, everyone. Bye.